It was hypothesized they were so hungry they were searching for grubs or moles, but sometimes the dogs would go haywire. They'd try to dig through concrete or wood. It was a total mess, and sometimes they would find a virus dog alive, and they'd have to immediately put it down. There was no way to put things out for the dogs to bait because nothing they did had any rhyme or reason. They dug up people's important food gardens, which there were many stories of, but they dug up everything else also. They kept people up at night, trying to even claw their way into houses, and would attack people immediately if given the chance. Eventually one day the team was driving around what they called the DMZ and stopped for their afternoon lunch. The place had been scouted a ton of times and the area was relatively factionless. The farmers had all got out and it was a giant no man's land. Nines and Drone Girl were looking through their monitors like they always did when they were stationary. By now there were several automated drones that would launch and investigate if anything got near the perimeter. The defensive drones all had various self-defense measures now, including low-power grenade launchers, liquid and pumps with directional hoses, and caseless air rifles. The grenade launchers were actually part of modified plastic Easter eggs and part little yellow dough cups. They'd found both in a children's toy warehouse that had gone out of business like so much else. The little dough balls were dried out, but with some water added they got rehydrated and handed out to the children in zip seal bags. The kids loved them, and the cups were used for greater purposes. Some little holes were made for pressure, and some PVC pipe found that they fit the whole thing. It was a perfect delivery device for Malays's concoctions. It was all technically less lethal, but with the dogs running around, they were taking extra precautions. Plus, if the recon squad ran into more than about 15 guys, they needed a threat equalizer so they could get out and notify the quick reaction team without taking any losses. So when the proximity alarm went off, it wasn't unusual in and of itself. Chapter 16, Not Okay, DMZ, Late Spring, Early Summer. What was unusual about the proximity alarm going off is that they couldn't see anything on the monitors. Nines and Drone Girl didn't ignore it for a second and immediately pressed a button, which shined yellow lights out of their command vehicle to alert the team. "What's the situation, Command?" One of them calmed in. "Sensor's got something. It's traveling at a moderate speed heading right for us. About 50 yards out, coming in from 3 o'clock. We don't have eyes on it. Launching drones." The sensors were really sensitive, but were tuned in to not pick up birds, although anything chicken-sized and up would pick it up. But chickens don't move this fast, and usually not in a straight line. The updated program sensitivity was inspired many years ago by a mix-up where a protester landed a gyrocopter on the lawn of an important government building. There were 9 law enforcement units responsible for the area. And the last one you'd expect ended up taking charge. The park ranger was the only to appropriately respond. Ever since then, many unique and bipartisan solutions to identifying incoming threats to make sure you don't get taken by surprise. Oh, and the park ranger got a very spiffy commendation and recognition, which was very appropriate. It had been hard for Nines to find a book for Drone Girl to reference to get it all dialed in right, and it had paid off already several times. It was about to pay off again. As the motion got closer, Drone Girl noticed that there were several more signatures behind the initial one. "I think we're being rushed. Any eyes?" "Nothing. Everyone be ready." They'd already taken defensive positions and were ready to fire. The security chief already thinking to himself how they needed to review about 20 procedures for the situation. He was still very thankful, though, that everyone was steadfast and flexible enough. To his left and right, drones deployed, one being controlled by Nines, the other being controlled by Drone Girl. Normally Nines would be watching the perimeter, but there were 8 guys outside all ready to go. It was the girl's job in this scenario to cover the flanks. The drones flew out at 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, trying to get eyes or a firing solution on the incoming should it be needed. It was sort of a dilapidated industrial area, and there was no consistent way of seeing very far in. The drones got higher and further out, but everyone heard and saw it next at the same time. a little critter barreling and crashing through the trash and debris, yelping and whining. It ran right past the team, who weren't expecting it. Not far behind were very large dogs of varying breeds in pursuit that looked horribly disfigured. The team opened up on the dogs as they rushed through, not anticipating the team there. A bunch of clears were shared. Drone Girl and Nines also heard all clear. After the brief moment of ensuing responsive gunfire, the chief of security said they were leaving now, so everyone immediately covered their drivers as the 3-vehicle convoy got going. Something wasn't sitting right with Nines, though, and she remembered that those dogs had been chasing something. She calmed. Anyone see what they were chasing? They didn't need... They had given up on the infected dog samples by this point, so everyone had forgot and was prioritizing getting out of there. Negative, Command, but we're evac now. Get your unit turned around. Drone Girl hopped in the driver's seat. Their vehicle was always running due to the power it consumed. There were tons of spare batteries on it, but this was determined to be the safest procedure. They stayed far enough out with their vehicle so the noise wouldn't draw any unwanted attention. The trick was always trying to keep the truck parked in the right direction to get out fast. Drone Girl really wanted to get them out of there to be safe as fast as possible. Nines pleaded with Drone Girl to wait. She was absolutely sure somehow that there was an animal under the vehicle. A cat had ran under her vehicle many years earlier when the stupid neighbors let it out. She'd been driving well under the speed limit, and the cat waited until she was nearly by and it darted out of nowhere directly under the car. Nines had absolutely no way to avoid it, and the cat basically ran directly into the tire. The neighborhood had formed a quick posse and tried to confront Nines, calling her out in front of her own house, but Nines denied hitting their cat and asked why it was out in the first place. There was much tension in the neighborhood after that, with the owner randomly yelling at Nines when she drove by. As an almost a knee-jerk program, it destroyed Nines inside, and she was never able to atone for it due to the irrational lack of responsibility and tendency towards unmitigated violence that had become a new normal. Nines had obviously grown significantly since then, but this immediately ripped the prior healing scar on her heart wide open again. She opened the door to the command vehicle, and the security chief immediately screamed at her. Nines held herself upside down with her legs, her hair not falling to being in its usual bun, but her shirt falling down over her face. She tried to chuck her shirt into her pants, but it was partially in vain, so she tried to push the humiliating wardrobe malfunction out of her mind to deal with later. With quick thinking, she took ownership of the situation to use to her advantage. Guys, get me some light under this truck. There's a pretty decent amount of height off the ground, and she could see under the truck fairly well as everyone respectfully looked away from her and helped her look under the truck with their light beams. The security chief followed her instructions without further protest, and out of respect, much to Nine's surprise, there was a refracting pair of eyes looking back at her. Nines flopped out of the truck semi-gracefully and scuttled under the truck to grab the critter, tucking her shirt in as she went. Hindsight would have told her this was extremely dangerous and stupid, but she had a feeling. Had it been any other creature, or even the same creature with ill temperament, she could have been seriously injured, but this was not the case. Nines grabbed the animal and crawled out from under the truck, superficially scraping herself up many times along the way. Both Drone Girl and the security chief yelling at her now that they are leaving. She tossed the animal into the truck, and it darted back in the corner. Nines got in, and they all took off. Drone Girl was very upset. What are you trying to do? They said we gotta go. I'm sorry, I'll tell you why on the way, but I had to save whatever that was running away from whatever those other things were. That was all that needed to be said. Drone Girl couldn't be mad at Nines, and everything had turned out okay. It's okay, let's get the heck out of here, then you can check up on it. Nines remembered the drones and said, the drones. It's okay, while you're under the truck, I hit the auto-return command. They're both locked in safe and sound. You are the best. Well, yeah, I'm Drone Girl after all. It'd be silly if I left the drones behind. Well, thanks for not leaving me behind. They both smiled and were happy all the way back to the coastal stronghold. Chapter 17. Okay, coastal stronghold. Hours later. The drive back was uneventful, which was good, a testament to the DMZ being relatively straightforward if you kept it cleared and patrolled well enough. By the time everyone got back, nobody was upset about the breach in protocol anymore. The fact was that everyone survived, and that everything ended up being okay.